I asked two people. I talked to two students who had done the program before, and then I talked to one of the admins for the program who was leading, the selection, the structure of the program, etc. And I was like, how can I build my application for this? How can I present my product as a business? And with that feedback, I then applied, I got into that program, and I took that $4,000 and launched a crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter and turned that $4,000 into $50,000 to get the initial capital needed to bring my product to market.
Hello, hello, and welcome back to Shelf Talks. I'm your host, Roberta, and today we're excited to have with us Yelitza Jean Charles, founder and CEO of Healthy Roots Dolls, a toy company that creates multicultural children's products, teaching girls to love their curls. Welcome, Yelitza.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I would love to kind of start to understand kind of your journey before even starting Healthy Roots Dolls. So, can you tell us a little bit about, what was going on in your life prior to this idea of starting this brand?
Absolutely. So Healthy Roots Dolls is a multicultural children's product company, and our first line of dolls are called the Curl Friends. So it features Zoe, Marisol, and Guyana, which are all dolls that I like to say have curl power, so you can actually wash and style their hair like real hair with real hair care products, teaching you real hair care and techniques for the kids. Because I never had a doll that looked like me growing up. I never had a doll that helped me understand my hair. I never had a doll with my lips, my nose, my skin tone, all in one package that wasn't just a doll painted brown. And so that's where the inspiration for Healthy Roots Dolls came from. While I was studying at the Rhode Island School of Design, I went there in my undergrad for illustration. I wanted to be the next Kara Walker, but I learned so much while I was there about representation in media that I saw an opportunity to enter in the children's space because I realized adults kind of suck, but kids are great. Kids have so much potential. I could work with these kids. And so I wanted to give them the experiences I didn't have growing up. And it was mainly from a class project where I had redesigned Rapunzel and I turned her into a little brown girl with kinky curly hair. And a lot of my classmates started asking questions from there that led to the discovery of an audience that had a need, a product that could fulfill that, and then answering it by building up that demand and bringing that product to market.
Right. So I think when you kind of initially made your doll, it was kind of out of aluminum and clay. Is that kind of the first interpretation of the
So
product?
the class project was made on a tight budget, as most of my art school class projects were. I did not have a lot of capital while I was at art school, which did make it more challenging, but I feel like forced me to flex my creativity. So I was having to do a lot with nothing. And I was using the materials I could afford. So for the class project where I had to reimagine a fairy tale character in a 3D object or a 3D project, I made it out of Sculpey, which is this moldable clay, and the inside. So I could save money on the
Mm.
Sculpey. I balled up aluminum and like rolled aluminum so that it would hold its shape, and then just put Sculpey on the outside, and then start sculpting it and shaping it, and then painting it, and all these. And I was hot gluing fabric because I didn't know how to sew, and I was trying to save time because I just needed to present. And I think that's a great example about prototypes. I think we always think our first version of our product needs to be perfect, but it's like when you're just developing the concept and you're trying to bring it to life just to see, just to look at it, to get an idea of how it could be made. It's okay to use aluminum and some clay to get the job done so you can at least visualize and start somewhere.
Yeah, no, agreed. Like just be scrappy and figure out the things that you already have kind of in your household. So,
Yeah.
so when you made that doll and then you had that presentation, was that the kind of spark to say, I want to start this as a business, or were you still kind of like thinking about it and ideating what that could look like?
I think what I've heard from a lot of founder stories and business owner stories is the businesses came out of necessity or a need that was demonstrated, and they almost stumbled upon the opportunity. It's not that they always necessarily set out to create a business. I never set out to create a business selling toys. I set out to bring diversity to the toy aisle and diversify children's media in general because 65% of the world's population has curly or wavy hair, and over 50% of children in the US are of color, and that demographic is only growing. And only 4 out of 10 girls love their curls. And so I was like, I care about this issue. What can I do to address this issue? that aligns with my skills, my passion, my interests, and that there is a need and demand for. It's like, okay, I think I could really push this idea further and see how much how much appetite there
Mm.
is for these types of products. And that's how I ultimately ended up building my business. It wasn't that I saw a problem or that I decided I was going to do this specific thing. It was I was responding to the world around me and the opportunity that was presented, and I kept running with it and progressing.
So one, I would like to say I love this because, being a brown girl myself growing up, we of course had, the black Barbie doll, but realistically, like it didn't look like us, right? It literally was a Barbie doll that was painted with brown skin. And so you never could really like feel connected to it in a way that you really should. And it looked like you and you feel confident in all those things that your product brings. So just wanted to say that because I just definitely feel really special about that. But so getting back to it, so you have your kind of prototype idea. What were next steps for you?
So after the prototype, I had actually taken the class project and posted it in my like Facebook page. And there were like hundreds of comments later where I was just talking to other women and other black women like, "Oh yeah, I never had a doll that like had my afro hair and like I never was able to do my doll's hair the way that I did my hair or that my hair looked. And I always wanted to look a certain way because the doll looked a certain way."
Mhm.
And so I was finding a common theme amongst a lot of people and we were just talking about that and I was like, okay, is this something that I can potentially solve? And then I actually received an email from my university about a fellowship program that would award $4,000 grants to social impact ventures for students to develop it during the summer. And I didn't necessarily know if my concept for a doll was a business yet, but that was the first time I did what I call how do I phrase this? I always say don't say no before you can say yes, which is you don't know if you're going to have an opportunity unless you actually apply for the opportunity. If you tell
Mhm.
yourself you don't qualify, if you tell yourself you're not going to get it, you're not going to get it because you're not even going to put in the application.
Yeah.
You might as well ask them. You might as well ask them. So that was the first time I did that, where I actually connected with. I asked two people. I talked to two students who had done the program before, and then I talked to one of the admins for the program who was leading, the selection, the structure of the program, etc. And I was like, how can I build my application for this? How can I present my product as a business? And with that feedback, I then applied. I got into that program, and I took that $4,000 and launched a crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter and turned that 4,000 into $50,000 to get the initial capital needed to bring my product to market.
Was Kickstarter something that somebody recommended to you? Had you kind of researched what opportunities you can kind of do in regards to getting like additional funding? How did that kind of come to be?
Yeah, I think at the time Kickstarter was really hot, and Kickstarter is still a great platform to launch. And I feel like they're having a resurgence because there's people who have great ideas and they realize I can be a creative and launch this product and get people to believe in it as long as I put my ideas out there.
Hmm.
And they're seeing Kickstarter as the way to do that. At the time, like so many projects started on Kickstarter. There's so many businesses who started on Kickstarter. Issa Rae started on Kickstarter.
Oh, really?
Yes, she did.
Oh, wow.
People don't remember. Humble beginnings, but it starts with putting your ideas out
Yeah.
there. I had chosen Kickstarter because I'd seen other creators be very successful on it, and it's a great way to do organic marketing, get people to like invest and believe in the idea and spread the idea. And I also did it because through the accelerator program I was in, so I had gotten into the fellowship program, but I had also gotten into my first startup accelerator program called Mass Challenge. They accepted 128 businesses out of thousands of applicants. And while I was at that program, I realized that as a black female founder with an art school background, no business degree, no business acumen, I was not going to get a check from these VCs, from these investors. And so many of them were saying this market is too niche. You don't have the right team. You don't have like there's not an opportunity here. And so I said, if they don't believe that there's an opportunity here, I have to show them.
Mm.
And that's one way you can use Kickstarter to do that, which is show like there are people who do want to buy this, and I know because they did.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that's a great reminder for founders too that are trying to create something that they can't start in their kitchen, right? Or start at home, a way that they can, validate the idea and get additional funding by just getting support from community. So once you got that $50,000, how did you take that money and actually source the manufacturer?
So the other thing that I learned in school was measure twice, cut once, which means once you cut a piece of paper, you can't uncut it. So once you spend the money you have, you can't unspend it. So you need to make sure that you're doing, dotting your I's, crossing your T's. So I had to spend 2 years of research and development to even figure out how to bring the product to market, how to do molds, how to source the materials, how to find the right manufacturer. And that was when my network came into play because I actually found my manufacturer through an intro of an intro of an intro through like Venture for America, which is another fellowship program I did. And somebody in that program, when I was in an accelerator in Durham, North Carolina, introducing me to Duke, head of entrepreneurship, introducing me to somebody in the toy industry, introducing me to my manufacturer. And so I tell that story to people because it's compounding the
Mm-hmm.
years of experience and relationships and development that ultimately led to the product coming to market. It's not just you get the money and you launch or you put it on the internet and it's a huge success. There is no overnight success. The My first concept of the product was in 2014 and it got into Target in 2021. That's what, like 7 years? That's not, it doesn't just happen like that.
Overnight,
Not for
yeah.
everyone, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's good too because you see people online and they're in all of these stores and you think it just happened, but to your point, there's a lot of work to be done to even get to a finalized state in which you feel that it can be presented to anybody to get to shelf or to even start to
Yeah.
sell. So I guess one takeaway from that is just recommending to kind of build community and kind of get in some. I know you did a
Mm.
lot of accelerator programs as well. So would that be kind of the
Yes.
takeaway? Is build community
Oh,
and
I have so much to say about
okay,
this.
go ahead.
So I had attended CultureCon, and this is so funny because in 2023 I made my vision board for 2024, and on 2024, and like I don't have any big visions anymore because I've done all the things I wanted to do professionally. Like I got on Forbes 30 or under 30. I did all the
You
things I
did.
wanted to do. So now my vision board is more about like ways that I can engage my community and grow personally and creatively. And one of them was to attend CreatorCon. And I attended CreatorCon this year as a speaker through Kickstarter, speaking to other people, taking the stage and talking about how to bring your ideas to life and not let the fear of putting yourself out there stop you
Mm-hmm.
from launching your next creative concept. And and this links back to your question because one of the things I talked about was people focus so much on reaching these people that they believe have already achieved it all. You know, the Issas, the Beyoncés of the world. Like, if I could just talk to Jay Z, I would choose the Jay Z dinner over the check any day.
Right.
Like all my problems would be solved. And it's like, actually, the people who are going to be most impactful in your life are the people to the left and to the right of you.
Mm,
The people you are in classes with, the people you are in programs with, the people who you are going through the professional journey with. Those are the people who are one day going to be executives, producers, like art directors. Like those are the people you need to connect with and build relationships with, and invest in each other's ideas. And those are the people who are going to help you advance. Yes, there are going to be mentors and advisors along the way, but you should be investing in your own network right now.
mm-hmm.
And so community building was a huge part of my journey. It was the fact that hundreds of my Facebook friends, even though they didn't have kids at the time, were sharing my content, were telling me about programs, were letting me crash on couches, were helping me find apartments in different cities, were reviewing my pitches, listening to my, all these things, helping me film videos. It's the people to your left and to your right who are going to help you do that. So instead of, shooting for Beyonce, help each other,
Yeah.
invest in each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And embrace that because I know even talking to lots of founders, it sounds like it's a very kind of lonely experience as you're kind of building a brand. So having people around you kind of helps with that as well. So thank you for that. I love that. So then you have you go through this time in which you've found a manufacturer, you're going through iterations, and then finally you get your actual sample. What were Was that exactly the way that you wanted it to look? Were there kind of changes once you got it and you were like, oh, I should have changed this or I should have done that?
I hated it. I hated it. I think I scrubbed it from the internet.
Really? Well, not your very first
People
one.
don't even realize there was a version one of my doll. Like you can't find it.
It's that bad for you, but it was your first, so you have to still embrace it.
Yes, yes, because I would not have gotten to the current if I had not gone through that first. And to the hundreds of Kickstarter backers who received that first and loved her, it meant a lot to them too. And they were able to give us feedback to get an even better version of our doll. Like learning from the hours of play that their children were going through and the feedback on the packaging and the shipping
Mm,
experience, all those things. You cannot get to your current like your most perfect version without, putting out your ugly duckling.
yeah.
Like you gotta that's how you get there. So I did not love it. I learned a lot, and it's funny because I felt like I had done a lot to mitigate. I felt like I had gotten the renderings, and I had done my own 3D prints, and I had held the 3D printed prototype. I had painted it myself, but there's a lot of you have to accept that there's a lot of things you don't know, and you have to consult with people. Like after that version, I actually found a sculptor to work with because even though I was a technically trained artist and like I can, illustrate and I can do all these things, I'd never designed a toy. And so I needed someone who could take my drawings and actually do the 3D rendering because I didn't know how to do 3D renderings. And so I needed a perfect 3D rendering. And then I needed someone to do the deco, which is actually it's basically the doll's makeup artist.
Oh.
And she had done some beautiful work before, and so it's like here's how to the blush placement and the codes that you have to give the manufacturer, and those were all things that I was able to get connected to because I had built a network of people who could make introductions for me and help me after I had gotten the capital to pay for these services.
I was just about to ask you, how did you find all of those? So that leads back to just the community that you had built in connecting.
Exactly, and also going to the spaces within my industry. So like oftentimes people ask me like how did you find these opportunities, how did you find these workshops, how did you find these accelerator programs? I went to google.com and I typed in startup accelerators, I typed in toy industry events, I typed in female founder grants, I typed in startup networking, I typed in small business program. Just
Yeah,
searching.
yeah. So one, I mean, before going back, because I want to go back to just the investment piece and the pitching that you did. But when you got that first actual doll, and you said you didn't love it, but it sounds like you still kind of sent it out to the community of Kickstarter that had done those pre-orders.
Yes, I didn't realize I didn't love it until later. Like I was so excited at the beginning, but then once I like started shipping it and started realizing what I could have changed, that's when I was like, oh, I would. It's because hindsight is always
2020.
what is it? What is it? Yeah, hindsight is always like, oh, I should have did
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Oh, I should have did this. Yeah.
So what was the feedback that that consumers were telling you when they got that first doll?
So there was so much feedback on the actual limbs of the doll, and I was realizing, children are not just playing with the hair, they're also playing with the doll itself. So it's like the way the limbs turn, the material, the like hardness of the body, the outfit because but I think is challenging is like with your MVP, you want it to be like a perfect version of your product, but you also have limited budget and you're also trying to get something out there. And so I was most focused on hair when I needed to be able to do everything balanced. So when I came back, I was able to invest more in the outfit, in the doll body, and bring something that was more holistically a great product. So it wasn't just like 100% hair, 20% body. It was like equal distribution
Across
of
the whole.
greatness.
Right, right.
Yes, exactly.
No, and the people that had bought it were the ones that were kind of telling you that and opening your eyes to it.
Yeah, and so using your customers as a way to get like that's what
Hmm.
they're for. Your customers are there not only to get value from your product, but to help you improve and take their feedback to create more value for them.
Yeah, yeah. So it seemed like you did a lot of pitching, getting grants to kind of continue to fund your business. What actually made you kind of think about this is the route that I need to go in order to secure funding versus getting VCs?
Yeah, so as I had talked a little bit about the accelerator program that I'd done after the fellowship program in college, so that they were in the same year as Mass Challenge. And while I was at Mass Challenge, having lots of conversations with people in the startup space and the VC space who essentially told me that my idea was not fundable that I didn't have a big enough market, that I didn't have the right background, I didn't have the right team. Those were the things that drove me to go to my customers to help me create demand and prove the product is viable. And then I needed, knowing that I was not likely to get venture capital, the next best
That's
option is grants and pitch competitions.
got it. And then how did you just kind of practice on your own for when it came to pitching, or did you go to any type of like classes or anything that like that to learn like the best way to pitch?
I would love to say that I'm just a naturally gifted storyteller. However, I get it from my parents, and no, I think the thing that people underestimate is what's that story? They say it takes 10,000 hours to master something. And so my 10,000 hours obviously started from like my household, like listening to my parents as storytellers. I come from a Caribbean household, and I just listen to my parents on the phone all the time, watching them like talk with their hands, and then this happened, and and it's just like just so much charisma, so much charm. And then I also was in student leadership. I went into college. So my like junior senior year of college, I was a pre-college RA. I was an orientation leader. I was a regular RA. I was president of Student Alliance, president of Black Artists and Designers, co-founder of Rizzy Feminist, and I think I did a bunch of other things I don't remember. Um, and then I also was doing like protests on my campus about social issues. I was on social media writing these captions and explaining these social issues to my classmates. I was very highly engaged in like Tumblr and then Twitter and then Instagram. So I was like always talking and
Mm-hmm.
learning how to write for social media, essentially doing like guerrilla marketing. And then I was starting to pitch and like learning how to talk to people and develop my concept and my idea and understand how to curate my message for the right audience so that they can understand it and ultimately win that competition I'm in. So those were my 10,000 hours. I didn't just I didn't go to any formal training other than the accelerator programs I was in, where I was getting advice from mentors and advisors about how to craft my narrative and refine my pitch to the audience, because that was one of my big things was, okay, this might be what your goal is or how you understand it, but you need to make other people understand
Yeah.
it. You can't, because you can't. And then my other big thing was in art school, one of my big benefits was critique, where we all just put our homework up on the walls and we just talk about everybody's work in front of everyone. And so you have to defend your ideas.
Mm, yeah.
And so that's another place where I got my 10,000 hours and was able to learn how to change my narrative for other people to understand my vision and what they needed to hear to buy in.
Yeah. What I love about that too is that the fact that, initially I would think, oh, I don't know how to pitch, so I don't really know if I should do it. But what you're saying is it's not just about the pitch, it's like all of the other things outside of that where you're learning on how to like curate and talk and like be able to convince people in other places outside of just the actual like idea of going and pitching in front of somebody. So, just thinking about how other things that you're doing in your life kind of connects to that, I think is
Yeah.
smart.
And I think it's the perspective that, like, oh, I don't know how to pitch, so I just don't know how to do it. Like, figure it
Yeah. Yeah. Or
out.
just start or just do it, even if you don't win the first time. And then to your point, like practice, practice, practice is gonna get you there.
Not knowing how to do something does not mean don't do it.
Yeah.
It means figure out how to do it or find somebody else who
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes, that's the lesson. That's the lesson. So okay. So going back to Kickstarter, so you sent out your first kind of dolls, you got great feedback, you made adjustments, I'm assuming, and yes, I know from the final. And then how long until you got that next run? And then what did you do with that? Like did you start just selling online or what was your next kind of mode in sales?
Yeah, so it was actually a year in between that first version and that next one. And then we had also learned to partner because what we were doing was we were working on discovery, so building brand awareness. So we partnered with hair product companies that aligned with our core audience to do these little kits, and we would ship them with the doll so that the kids could actually like use the products on the doll's hair. And when we redesigned the product, we were doing a relaunch. So we had rebuilt the website, we had changed the website, we had created all new social media content, and we had partnered with Procter and Gamble's My Black is Beautiful. to ship out the doll together in this My Black is Beautiful bundle, and there was a PR push, and it just hit. People loved it. It was a great launch. We were selling out, and then the pandemic happened. And so that was fall of 2019 because we had launched the original in 2018. We relaunched in 2019, and then the pandemic hit in 2020. And we just kept growing because, unlike other businesses that we were competing with or that were in our space, we had always been online. So we had always had social strategy and content. We had always been building our email list. We had always been running ads. We had always been selling and shipping to customers online. So we were built like
For that time.
for tough.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
were built for it. So we were already able to meet our customers where they were transitioning to because people weren't shopping in person. And so that was and then we were also addressing the state of the world because we were recognizing like, hey, you're stuck in your house with your kids. Give them something to do. But also like writing meaningful messages and helping people stay informed about what was going on in the world and providing some positivity. And then that summer of 2020 we went viral and we completely sold out like 3 times. And that's when we got our introduction to Target because I had mentioned them in one of our articles as one of our goals for the future.
So then Target calls and you have your pitch to them, right? What did that look like? How did you, because because these dolls are kind of multicultural and don't speak to everyone, how did you, how were you able to convince that audience, those buyers, that this is something that, is necessary for the consumer base that shops their stores?
I would say first that I don't agree with them not speaking to everyone. That's also part of our message that toys are for everyone. Toys have no age, toys have no gender, toys have no specific racial identity that they're for. They might be created with a specific intent or goal, but that's not its only function. If black children can play with white dolls for decades, I don't see any reason why white kids can't play with black dolls. Black people exist, Asian people exist, Latino people exist. You can have whatever dolls you want. Your toys should be as diverse and reflect your world. They should be as diverse as your world is. So that's the first thing I would say is that they're not only for black kids. They're for everyone. And the demand that we had already built, the audience we had already built, the sales we had already had demonstrated that. And that's what helped us with landing retail.
Got it. Okay. So is that's something you showed during your presentation to the buyers?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think, one, and I know you talked about it even from a social standpoint in regards to the fact that these dolls can be played with everybody because it teaches kids that the world is not just one. And, they it's opportunity for them to love like other races and colors that are in their community and
Yeah.
that they'll grow with. I think my question was more just around the fact that even though that is true, a lot of times it's hard for other people to kind of embrace that concept. So I was just
Mm.
wondering, how you were able to communicate that. But I think with the data is what you're saying, it proved that was already opportunity.
But also, we have to remember what was happening in 2020. There was a whole conversation about diversity and inclusion. And so people were getting on board. People were recognized. People were having these conversations. People were taking the opportunity to understand we need to do more on diversity and inclusion, have these conversations, not just with each other, but with children.
Yeah.
And so that was also a big push for us.
Yeah. So we had that conversation with Target. What was the time period in regards to you kind of having the early conversation with them and then actually being on shelf?
Yeah, so I would say it happened within a year, and there was a lot to learn about retail. Retail is really challenging. Um, I think one of the challenges with retail is people think that once you're in stores, it's a huge success. And it's like, no, there's a lot to learn behind the scenes. Operations and logistics are king. And one thing that I did not anticipate was the fact that people would be going into the store and just buying the product off seeing it without knowing who we were or anything else about us. And that's kind of cool. And no, because before that we had to work to put ourselves out there online and like be discoverable, and we're emailing the customer, we're helping them discover us, but in stores we don't get to talk to them or tell them anything. They're just falling in love with the product in that moment, and that says a lot about what we had built. And so after we had launched in retail, we actually had to revisit our packaging and go like, how do we make this packaging retail friendly, because they don't know us, and they need to understand the product they're buying, they need to be able to see it. So we actually turned the corner of the box into full plastic so that this light could shine through on the doll's face, because before it was really dark. It was just like cardboard all the way around, and you couldn't see the doll's face or the hair. So we wanted to change that so it was more accessible, more visible. But it was about a year, and we started online. We sold out in 72 hours, and then we launched into stores, and we grew from, I think it was 400 stores to 1,600 in about a year and a half.
Wow, wow, that's crazy and so fast. Um,
Yeah.
going back, because this is really good. So I actually did kind of a fireside chat earlier this week, and I was asked a question about what do you say to brands that are not excited to only launch online versus being in store. So can you talk a little bit about like what that opportunity is where you have the platform? It may not be on Target shelves initially, but having it
Mm.
online, and then, how did you sell out within, just a couple, 72 hours?
Those are two very big questions. um, I think that there's nothing wrong with starting online. It does not mean that you could never be in stores. So definitely take that opportunity and use that as a way to drum up excitement about your brand and get people to support so that you can, work towards that in-store retail partnership that you desire. And then what was the second question?
The second question is, how did you sell out in 72 hours?
She's just that girl. No, it. I think people underestimate the importance of marketing,
Yeah.
because, like I said, it's not you post online and people buy. It's not your products in the store and people buy. You have to do the job of drumming up the interest, putting your brand out there, telling your story, and sharing the value for customers. And so that's something that we had done effectively. And so that's why we were able to sell out so quickly, because people were looking forward to the opportunity to purchase in store, or they, hadn't heard of us yet, or they had been waiting for an opportunity to shop. And they're like, this is it. I'm going to order from Target.
Yeah.
And they took that and they helped us, helped amplify us.
No, great. And then quickly move into stores. So you moved into stores, you got on shelf, changed packaging because to your point, like it could look different how you're selling online versus the experience that consumers that are having when they're in store. And then it sounds like, and I know you mentioned it, but you quickly kind of expanded to more stores just based off this success.
Yes.
So within that year of your saying that you actually, from finalizing the conversation with Target to being on shelf, what were going on behind the scenes? You talked about kind of making sure manufacturing is in place. Did you have to, grow your team? Were you using the same manufacturer, or since you were going to kind of, a bigger scale, did you have to do any adjustments or changes there?
Yeah, so I would say one of the things I had also learned was staying ready so you don't have to get ready. So when I was looking for manufacturing partners and building our team, always wanted to make sure that if we did have the opportunity to eventually do larger orders, we had the capability to do so. And so we had always partnered with manufacturers, or I'd known manufacturers that if necessary, we could bring these on and take on these order quantities.
Yeah. And then what about your team? Did you have to expand anything? Did you have to expand your team in order to be ready for that, or who even was on your team at that point?
Yeah, so you definitely, I think one of the things is with retail, there's no book on like, here's how to do retail. There's definitely workshops and you learn from other founders, but sometimes there are challenges that pop up like SPS Commerce,
Hmm.
EDI.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
we need to find someone to own this channel. And you don't realize that until it comes and you're like, oh, this is something we need to hire for. And so that's definitely, we did a lot of hiring to meet the new needs of our business, because we had been focused on online sales. Now we had to focus on retail. And so we had to find people to cover those needs.
Got it. And then when it came to kind of the spend for that big order, how did you go about being able to provide and support that, knowing that, with retail, you're not getting paid up front for being able to have that funding?
There are a lot of different financing tools that businesses use. So I can't speak to every business, but you can secure loans, secure factoring, different things like that to help support your business through the POs and the payment times because it can be extremely long. And you can also negotiate your payment terms with your vendors. And I've heard that some people even have negotiated payment terms with their manufacturers so that they can control that cash flow.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you. Okay, so I know you started with one doll. Is that when you launched in Target, did you launch with that one doll or was that a point in which you already had expanded to additional dolls within the family?
We started with one doll, and then after Target, we launched our two new girlfriends in it was either 2021 or 2022. And they were hot. They were just people were like, give me, give me. It was watching new dolls outpace your first child is just
You're like, no, go back to her.
show some respect.
What even made you like, I guess, where did you get to the point where you said, okay, now I need to kind of expand into to more dolls?
I think it's very natural to want to expand your product line, and given the nature of our company, the goal was always to have more characters, more dolls. The company, when I first did develop the concept in college, I started with an illustration of four different
Oh,
characters.
okay.
So the goal was to always have more. It was just about building to get to that point.
Got it. And would you recommend kind of the one idea, the one kind of MVP that you mentioned as an initial launch when you go out to kind of understand consumer feedback, demand changes? Because I would imagine if you had launched all three and then got all that customer feedback that you said, even from Kickstarter, probably been a lot more challenging to kind of change and adjust.
Yeah, I think if you want to launch your brand with all your products built all at once, you can do that. I don't know if that's the best way to go about it. I think it's smart to start with one, see how it performs, get feedback, perfect the formula, and then repeat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I chose to do was launch the first character, get some great feedback, redesign, revamp, build off that momentum, get that feedback and then finalize our next designs and characters and create something really beautiful.
So, was there any other feedback from Target of consumers outside of the box and kind of being for consumers to be able to see the product? Were there any other changes that you had to make?
Box was mainly us. That wasn't consumers. We were just like, that doesn't look
Oh,
right.
okay, that was your own feedback. Okay.
Yeah. It's like because you always need to go to the store, and even before because we did that actually before it landed in stores, we went to the stores and put them on the shelves. And
Smart.
we're like, how does that look?
Yeah.
Do we like the way this looks? And like even with our colors, you'll notice like in the world of pink, our box is blue,
Purposefully
and it helps.
because
Yes,
you wanted to
exactly,
stand out on shelf.
because we stand out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I love that. Going to the store early, seeing what everyone else surrounding you would look like, and then how do you make yourself kind of a differentiator in that space. So then after Target's launch, was Macy's kind of your next retailer?
I think we launched them at the same time. We were speaking to buyers at similar times, and it just was natural, and it was a great opportunity, and it was really nice to see them in stores for the first time.
Yeah, what was that feeling like?
It was funny to see them in stores because I had taken my mom to see them, and I thought she was going to be very excited, but in true typical Haitian fashion, she was very nice, very good, good job.
Like, and weren't you like, Mom, do you know what this means? Do you know what this really is? This is
Okay, okay,
big.
nice, good job. Okay, okay. Now I need to whatever.
It humbles you.
Yeah,
It
it was
humbles you.
fun. They keep me humble. They keep me humble. Like we had went to the CBS morning show, and I was like, Mom, this is Gail King. She's like, Hi, Gail. All right, all right.
Speaking of that, is that because you've done a lot of press, you've been on a lot of TV. I know Kelly Clarkson's what you just said, Good Morning America. Is that one of your strategies in regards to just continuing to drive awareness is through press, or did that kind of naturally happen?
It definitely contributes to the brand awareness, but it honestly happens organically. So I'll talk to founders who are always asking me like, "How did you get these media opportunities? How did you get these media opportunities?" And I always tell them I post on social media. Yeah, put yourself out there. Because you can pay PR, and it definitely helps, for award submissions and things like that. But there's nothing better than telling your own story.
Yeah, that's great. I think That's great because people are always looking and doing the Google to say, how can I get on press, and paying people probably, I would imagine, even to try to figure that out. But if you just kind of show up every day and people see you, there's opportunities that could come to the forefront. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you just talk a little bit about, so for marketing, and I hear you did a lot in regards to social and driving awareness and even ads prior to getting into retail stores. How did that strategy change when you were in retail? Like, how did you, shift marketing support to allow consumers to understand and know that your product's in retail stores?
So I don't know if we necessarily had to shift marketing support. I think it was mostly about just mixing up our content and so including retail in our marketing strategy on a consistent basis. So there'll be different content pillars, and obviously you're going to drive people to your website, but now you also need to include your retail partners on a how would I describe this, on a reasonable cadence,
Mm-hmm.
because you need to support retail. And there's always, it's crazy because we've been in Target for 3 years. There's always someone new discovering that you're in a store. And so that's why you need to be consistent and included in your marketing on a regular cadence. So that there wasn't necessarily a shift in support. It was just shifting to include.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's smart too because, being a buyer myself, I feel like there's lots of times where brands come in and they do a lot of support at the beginning of launch, but then it's kind of dark and silent. And that, of course, leads to kind of a downtrend in sales, and people, to your point,
Mm.
aren't really knowing. So I think that's key. And what you're saying is just consistently having that marketing and driving awareness. I saw something you posted recently where you're like, some people still don't even know I'm in Target. So just always like talking about that and telling people where to shop is always going to be important.
It is. It's funny because we'll post content, or sometimes even on just my personal page. People are like, you should be in Target. I'm like, we are in Target. Thank you. I
Go to the
appreciate
store
that.
and check us out.
Go see it in person.
So how has your business kind of evolved as you've been in retail stores?
Yeah, I think going from being a direct to consumer brand, which we're just focusing on our digital ads and our social media and our email marketing, to being in retail, you have to split your marketing to focus on both. So you're focusing on driving people to retail and then also to your own website. But the main thing I think that's definitely changed is the education, because there are so many people who are discovering us from different channels now, that when they do come to us or they do come to our website or our email or our socials, we want to be answering the questions that might not have been answered on, wherever they might have discovered us, whether it's in store. It's like, hey, like, let's do wash days and let's create YouTube content to educate people on like the different uses of the product and help them understand how limitless it is, because there are actually people who just buy the doll just to be a doll,
Hmm.
and that's it. I'm like, no, like, she can do so much. Like, let's get the
Let's
shampoo.
explore,
Let's go.
right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we've transitioned to now, is like, because so many people have the products, now it's about engaging them and showing them fun things they can do with their products.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, I saw that. I mean, I think that's amazing and awesome too that you're teaching young girls like how to take care of their hair. It literally, to your point, is not just a doll. There's just so much opportunity for learning at such a young age and developing and again, loving kind of, your hair and being able to take care of it
Yeah.
because it takes a long time. I'm still trying to learn how to do that.
It takes time. It takes
Takes
time.
time. It takes time. Okay. So if you could tell everyone kind of where they can buy Healthy Roots dolls, I mean, we definitely know Target, so everybody remember that. But where are all the places that you can buy, and then how can they follow you in your story and journey?
You can find Healthy Root Stalls at healthyrootstalls.com and Target stores and Macy's. Healthy Root Stalls are multicultural dolls teaching kids to love their naturally curly hair. But like I always say, toys are for everyone, and anyone can have a curl friend.
Yes, definitely agreed. Love that. And for anybody watching on YouTube, you saw the doll too, which is so cute and definitely resembling of culture. So I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Yalitza. Great conversation, fun having you, and I definitely thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.